The winning blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
Welcome. You are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. Man, seems like it's been an eternity since the last time I've spoken with you. Look, when life throws you a curveball and you're expecting a fastball, what can you do? The knees buckle, you strike out, you walk back to the dugout dejected because you were looking for one thing, you got another. A longtime buddy of mine, my hard drive, he had enough. And we had some good times. We had a good run. But as we all know, all good things must come to an end. He blew a hammy. He said, look, I'm done. I've been doing this for a long time and I'm finished. I don't want to rehab. I don't want to try and make a comeback. I'm done. And when your hard drive decides that it's done, it's over. There's nothing you can do about it. And so it was a wrap. And it took me a while to get back on my feet, but here I am. So I got my bat back in my hand. I'm looking fastball. When I get it, I won't miss. But if that curveball comes, I'll be waiting for that too. So here I am back in the flesh once again. And we're back with the series that I left off with. And it seems like it's been an eternity once again since we last talked about what's new in. But fret not. We're back to talk about what's new in, and today we'll be talking about what's new in Carolina. This is via YouTube subscriber Cubone Studios. He got his St. Louis Rams in earlier on in the process, so now he's just helping out other teams. And so he got the Carolina Panthers in. We'll be talking Panthers football today, what's new in Carolina. So I won't hold you up. I've been gone long enough. Let's get straight to the content. We'll be talking about what's new in Carolina, but before we can get to what's new, you got to go and get rid of what's old. We're going out with the old in Carolina. Not going to lie to you, feels great to be home, back in front of the camera where I belong. I'm what the game's been missing, and I'm back. Now, I can't get into what's new in Carolina, what's old in Carolina, without the aid of two of my trusty assistants. That being the big board, of course, and my handy dandy pointer. I've got both. Let's get to the big board and talk some Carolina Panthers football. So we go out with the old with the Carolina Panthers, and you got to start at the top. Ron Rivera was able to hold on to his job by the skin of his teeth. And last time I checked, your teeth don't have skin. So I don't even know why that saying exists, but nonetheless, he hung on to his job by a thread. And I tell you what, that 4-game winning streak to end the season really showed me a lot. If Ron Rivera can learn what buttons to push, when to push them, this team could be dangerous in 2013. So he's still there, same defensive coordinator, but your offensive coordinator, Rob Chudzinski, is out. And a lot of Carolina Panthers fans actually are ecstatic about this. And I actually thought Rob Chudzinski did a wonderful job of developing Cam Newton, really putting him in situations to succeed. However, I thought that in 2011, the Panthers had so much success with the read option and everything that sprung from it that Rob Chudzinski got greedy, and everything was based off of the read option. They even ran all of their running plays specifically out of the read option. A lot of their running plays came out of the pistol. It was ugly. A lot of stretch handoffs, delays out of the pistol. I wasn't a big fan of it. I thought they really oversold the pistol formation and the read option in 2012, especially early on in the season. They struggled. They realized, hey, we're really going overboard with this. They scaled it back. They inserted D'Angelo Williams into the starting lineup. He started to get the lion's share of the carries. He started to make plays. Cam Newton started to settle down. And his team as a whole started to settle down, started to score points. Defense played better. They won football games to end the season. Ron Rivera kept his job. But Rob Chudzinski, because of the success of Carolina, of Cam Newton, and this Panthers offense over the last two seasons, He's now your head man in Cleveland, so you lose your offensive coordinator. So we'll talk about who's going to be taking his place a little bit later, but Rob Chizzinski, no longer your offensive coordinator. So now you look at players who are no longer on this roster. Outside linebacker, James Anderson, and this guy was a stalwart on your football team for a while. James Anderson was one of those guys, hard hat, lunch pail, came to work every day, got it done at the linebacker position. A very savvy veteran that you're going to miss for his veteran leadership, not only on the field, but in the locker room. But the Panthers have an abundance of young, budding stars at the linebacker position, none bigger than Luke Kuechly. And so a guy like James Anderson wasn't really going to provide much on the field as much as in the locker room as a leader. You're going to miss James Anderson, but not on the field as much as in the locker room as a guy that had been in this Panthers organization for a long time. You look at defensive back Chris Gamble. Here's another guy. On the field, you're not going to miss him per se because he was getting up there in age. He was getting long in the tooth. He missed a majority of the 2012 season with an injury, decided to go ahead and hang up his cleats. He's retired. And so if you're Chris Gamble, it was a good run. Panthers decided to cut him loose. He didn't want to go relocate his family. He figured, hey, I've had enough. He's done. He's no longer in Carolina. So the Panthers have moved on from Chris Gamble. You look at defensive tackle Ron Edwards. He was part of the reason you weren't that stellar at stopping the run in 2012. If there was one deficiency on this Carolina Panthers defense, it was in the interior of this defense. And of course, the safety position. We'll get to that a little bit later, but in the interior of this defense, we all know what Dewan Edwards was for you last year. He was a monster inside, but he was by himself. He needs a partner. Ron Edwards wasn't that guy. He's now gone. He's a free agent. You look at wide receiver Louis Murphy. I thought he had a solid campaign for the Panthers. For a team that is looking for more help out wide at receiver, I thought Louis Murphy was a guy you could hold on to. I didn't see how that would hurt you. I didn't think it would cost you that much to hold on to Louis Murphy, but I guess you felt like you'll allow Louis to test the market. He found a bidder in the New York Giants. He's now in New York. Louis Murphy no longer a Carolina Panther. You look at safety Sherrod Martin. Here's a guy that never lived up to the billing in Carolina. You had high hopes for Sherrod Martin, and it just never manifested itself into what you thought it could be in Carolina. He's a free agent right now, and he's part of the reason, a huge part of why your safety position has been in flux for the last 3 or 4 seasons, because you've been waiting on Sherrod Martin to step up to the challenge of being a guy that could play across from Charles Godfrey, and it just never happened. Sherrod Martin no longer on your football team, and if you're a Panthers fan, you're actually standing up and clapping your hands to see that Sherrod Martin is no longer on your football team. You go from out with the old now in with the new with the Carolina Panthers. So now we go in with the new in Carolina, and you got to start at the top, just like we did with the out with the old. You got to start at the top. And so your new offensive coordinator is Mike Shula. And if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, you know exactly who this is. And when you're a head coach and you're clinging to your job, you don't want to make too many wholesale changes. Everything that changes needs to be very subtle and fine, because you're trying to build continuity to save your job. And so taking your quarterbacks coach, who has really helped develop Cam Newton over the last 2 seasons, and bumping him up to offensive coordinator sounds like a smart move on the surface. Now, Mike Shula comes in. He's got ample experience as an offensive coach, and so he's going to come in and really help this offense along. And who better than to help this offense than a guy that has been intimate with this offense for the last 2 seasons. So we'll talk a lot more about Mike Shula and his offensive philosophy a little bit later. Let's get into what else is new in Carolina. This is probably the one that I like the most here. Middle linebacker Chase Blackburn. Here's a guy that has been an unsung hero for the Giants. Giants let him go, brought him back. We all know the huge play he made in the Super Bowl versus the New England Patriots as he went up and snagged the football away from a hobbled. Keep that in mind, of course. We know Gronk was not 100% in that game. Does not matter. Chase Blackburn was about 40 yards down the field, went up and made a play on the football, picked it off. It was a huge play in that game, a turning point. of sorts. And so he brings a lot of intangibles to the table. I think the Giants really missed the boat by not bringing this guy back. He should have been really high on their priority list, especially for a team that does not have a lot of linebacker depth in New York. You have really won here. Their loss is your gain. You get a really good, experienced, hard-nosed linebacker. Not only is he going to help you with depth, because I think you have a very good front line in terms of linebackers. If Thomas Davis can stay healthy, if John Beeson can stay healthy. I already talked about Luke Kuechly. If you can get these guys to stay on the field, you've got probably the most athletically gifted set of linebackers in the National Football League. However, you add a tough, hard-nosed guy like Chase Blackburn to the mix, and all of a sudden, if one of those guys were to go down, you've got a guy that can step in and give you immediate production at the linebacker position. I love this, and he's going to help you on special teams. Great pickup by the Carolina Panthers. You look at cornerback Drayton Florence. This is more of a depth move at the cornerback position. He's a veteran that's going to come in, help school these young corners that you have, because you have a lot of young corners on your roster. But I think Drayton Florence's best days are way behind him. And so if you're looking for this guy to come in and play a lot of meaningful snaps, you're barking up the wrong tree. If you're looking for Drayton Florence to step in, play a little bit of nickel, play some dime, that's exactly what you want him to do for you. You want him to be there in a limited capacity, but Drayton Florence is not a guy you want starting out wide at cornerback. I don't think the Panthers envision him having to do that, but in a pinch, if he has to, he can, but you don't want him to have to do that. But it's a solid addition to a secondary that really struggled a season ago. You look at wide receiver Ted Ginn Jr. I've been hearing a lot of Panthers speak the name of Ted Ginn Jr. as if he's some type of savior. Okay? Let me help you pump your brakes, okay? Ted Ginn Jr. is a one-trick pony. Now look, he's really good at that one trick. However, he's a one-trick pony. Ted Ginn is not a well-rounded receiver that's going to come in and grab 52 balls for 791 yards and 7 touchdowns. No. Ted Ginn Jr. is a guy that will run by a cornerback, run by a safety, get open on a deep ball occasionally, and hit you for a big play. Ted Ginn Jr. is also a guy that in the returns game will give you some extra added value. And I thought Kealoha Polaris has been solid for you. He hasn't been abysmal in the return game, but I think Ted Ginn Jr. is definitely an upgrade in that capacity. But as a receiver, if it's not a drag, if it's not a slant, if it's not a go route, don't depend on Ted Ginn Jr. to elevate this wide receiving corps. He's going to help you in some capacity because he can get deep. But Ted Ginn Jr. is not your answer as your number 2. We already think in Carolina you have that in Brandon LaFell. He's in a contract year. I expect big things out of him. But I don't think he's a number 3 either. Ted Ginn is more like a 4th option, a 5th option at receiver. Not a 2nd, nor a 3rd. So for all you Panthers fans who think Ted Ginn Jr. is the answer at receiver, no. But your next acquisition that you got from the New York Giants, Dominic Hickson, is a guy that I think can come in and have an immediate impact on your football team. Here's a guy that has been bitten by the injury bug more than once in his career. And if he's able to stay healthy, I feel like he can make a serious difference on your football team. I think he can come in and be an exceptional complement to Steve Smith and Brandon LaFell. I think he's a guy that could play out wide as a number 2, but I think he'd be more comfortable in the slot as a number 3. And I think that this guy brings a lot to the table. He's a polished guy, can catch the football, can separate from defenders, can also give you some added special teams value if you need that as well. I think Dominic Hickson is the guy that you should be leaning on a little bit more heavily if you're a Panthers fan, if you're looking for production out of one of your free agent acquisitions at the receiver position. This is the guy that can help you the most. You just got to get him to stay healthy, something he hasn't been able to do throughout the course of his career. You look at safety, Mike Mitchell. Here's a guy from the Oakland Raiders that you acquired, and he was an underachiever by the Raiders standard. Everyone else around the league knew this guy was a 4th or a 5th or a 6th round selection, Raiders thought he was a second-round selection. Again, one of those height, weight, speed specimens. Raiders couldn't help themselves. They dove all over him, and it just didn't work out. But in Carolina, where you're really starving for someone to take over at the safety position, maybe Mike Mitchell, getting this fresh breath of air, might be able to come over and play some really inspired football. Who knows? I don't think this guy is a starting caliber safety, but from a rotational depth standpoint, I think he can help you. He'll help you on special teams as well. It won't hurt to throw as many safeties as you can into the mix and see if one of these guys work out, because I don't know about you. I don't know how you feel about Haruki Nakamura, but I don't think he's a starting safety in this league, and I think you got to sit him down at some point if you are the Carolina Panthers. You look at safety DJ Moore, and here's a guy that came over from the Chicago Bears. He's going to help you. Again, I'm more along the lines of, hey, throw as many of these guys at the safety position as you can and hope that one of them sticks. The Panthers are supposed to be reportedly interested and in talks with Quentin Michael. I think that would be the biggest solution to your problem. If you can get your hands on Quentin Michael, I think that would be the guy that could really help solidify your safety position. So that would be a huge boost if you are the Carolina Panthers, if you could get your hands on that guy. But DJ Moore, solid player, a lot of speed, can help you in different areas, could play a little corner in a pinch, can play some safety, very versatile, and also help you on special teams as well. Solid pickup, but again, I don't know if he is the answer at the safety position. So now you turn your attention from in with the new and free agent acquisitions to the draft picks of the Carolina Panthers. And I think the Panthers and their new general manager, Dave Gettleman, and I told you this when it was draft time, I said Dave Gettleman is a guy that is an old school GM, and his beliefs and his thoughts on how to build a team starts from within. Panthers had a twosome out there at defensive end in Hardy and Johnson, who were wreaking havoc on quarterbacks around the league, but they didn't have the guys in the middle outside of Dewan Edwards to really stop them from being double teamed on a week in, week out basis. So between that and not having enough girth inside to stand up against the run game, Dave Gettleman was going to get some beef in the middle. And he double dipped. So his first round selection, Star Lotulelei, he's going to come in, start right away across from Dewan Edwards. And he's a guy that not only can get in and get penetration and stop running plays in its tracks before they get started, but he's very quick, cat-like quick, and can get in and get pressure on the quarterback. And we all know in this league, that's priceless from the defensive tackle position. So that's a huge pickup. You double dip in the second round and go after a guy that when the motor's running hot, he's a force on the defensive line in Kawan Short. Fourth round, you go out and get a guard in Edmund Cook-Billa. You get linebacker A.J. Klein in the fifth round and running back K-John Barner in the sixth round out of Oregon. So I like the draft. Even though there wasn't a lot there, I thought you got a lot of quality. Not a lot of quantity, but the quality is definitely there in this draft for the Panthers. You add another linebacker that I think is very instinctive, that can do some things for you in A.J. Klein. Ken-John Barner is going to help this running game along. I just love what the Panthers did in this draft. So you go from there to guys who probably won't make this roster, but you just never know. So we go from draft picks who are going to make this roster to undrafted free agent rookies who are fighting for their NFL lives. So as we look at the undrafted free agent rookies, we start with Colby Cameron, quarterback out of Louisiana Tech, Mike Zordich, fullback out of Penn State, Talib Icaro, wide receiver out of Louisiana Tech, wide receiver Brenton Burson out of Wofford, James Shaw, receiver out of Jacksonville State, R.J. Webb, receiver out of Furman, Brandon Williams, tight end out of Oregon, Torrey Mobley, guard out of Jacksonville State, Brian Folkerts, center out of Washburn, Robert Lester, safety out of Alabama, Melvin White, cornerback out of Louisiana Lafayette, Wes Horton, defensive end out of USC, Craig Roy, defensive end out of Michigan, Lyndon Gaydorn, defensive tackle out of Calgary, Casey Walker, defensive tackle out of Oklahoma, and you round it out with 2 special teamers, Morgan Lineberry, kicker out of Abilene Christian, and Jordan Gay, punter out of center. So you look at these guys, and they're all long shots to make this roster. But in the National Football League, you never know. You just want the opportunity to play. These guys are going to get exactly that. And 1 or 2 of these guys, maybe even 3, might stick. But again, with this Panthers football team, I think there's a lot of young, talented players on this roster. And so I don't know how many slots will be available because the Panthers are in a position where they are developing a lot of talent. And a lot of guys are in make or break situations. And so they'll probably make the roster, and this will be their last opportunity to show. A guy like Amani Edwards, if he doesn't show up in this season, he's probably gone. This is a contract year for a guy like Brandon LaFell. If he doesn't prove that he's a legit number 2 receiver in this league, he won't be back in Carolina. So a lot of guys are in that prove it mode this season, and they'll have to show their worth to stick around in Carolina. So a lot of these guys probably won't make this roster, but I tell you what, 1 or 2 of these guys, if they impress this coaching staff enough, will probably be around come September when this season starts on this 53-man roster. So now we go from there to any philosophical changes in Carolina. So as you look at the Carolina Panthers and their philosophical changes, I want to start first with the head coach, Ron Rivera. And as the Carolina Panthers head coach, he's a cat. And as a cat, you got 9 lives. Well, Ron Rivera only has 1 life left. He's used up 8 of them. And this is it for him. If he can't get it done in 2013, and I'm not talking about 8-8 and 9-7 and missing the postseason. If he doesn't get this Panthers football team to the postseason, he is fired on the spot. And he doesn't have a lot of leeway either. If this Panthers team comes out of the gate and starts the season 1-6 like they did last year in 2012, he's fired. And so Ron Rivera has to get it done right away. We know you have a new GM in Dave Gettleman, and a lot of times when the new GM comes in, he wants to get his new head coach in there. He wants to get his guy inside there coaching up the football team so that if he does go down in a heap, does the general manager, at least he can say, hey, I went down with my guys. So Ron Rivera is hanging on by a thread. And we know that he's on a short leash by how your general manager, Dave Gettleman, handled this offseason. All of those guys that I talked about, all of those free agent acquisitions that were made, all 1-year deals. So these guys won't be around next season if Ron Rivera isn't around next season. If these guys come in and they don't get it done and they're part of a team that goes 6-10, Ron Rivera, along with all of those guys who just signed those 1-year deals, will be out. The new head coach will come in and he'll bring in his own free agents, guys who fit his system a lot better. So that's the tall tale sign right there. All the writing is on the wall that Ron Rivera has to get it done in 2013 if he wants to save his job. A strong finish, but 7-9 finish won't get it done this time around. So we move on from there and we go to defensive coordinator Sean McDermott. And he's in his 3rd year. He came onto this football team along with Ron Rivera, and he struggled in his first season. A lot of injuries, a lot of younger players, a lot of things didn't go the way the Panthers wanted them to. The offense in 2011 was dynamite, but the defense was among the worst in the league. In 2012, we saw kind of a role reversal. The offense kind of took a step back. The defense kind of took a step up, finishing 10th in the league. And so they really turned it around, did this Carolina Panthers defense. And there were a lot of injuries on this defense a season ago, yet Sean McDermott was able to get guys to play good football, all led by Luke Kuechly, your star rookie linebacker a season ago. And so this defense is starting to come along. Now you add a couple of big guys, some beef in the middle with Star Lotulelei, and you get Dewan Edwards back. Yeah, you let him walk away for a second. I was a little worried. You bring him back. So now you've got a very nasty twosome in the middle of that defense, which frees up your playmakers on the edges, Hardy and Johnson, to go after the quarterback. And a lot of people don't know, Charles Johnson had 7 forced fumbles a season ago. And A lot of people don't talk about forced fumbles, but that's what I want to see. When you get to the quarterback, I want to see you getting the football out. It's great to lay a nice shot on the quarterback, but I'd much rather have the football. And so Charles Johnson is a guy that understands. I want to get my hands on that football. And so if these guys can get one-on-one matchups, they showed last year that when they get one-on-one matchups, they can win those one-on-one matchups. Hardy with 11 sacks and Johnson with 12 and a half. Now you put these big monsters in the middle and you allow these guys to get one-on-one matchups. I want to see what this Panthers defense is going to look like in 2013, along with that linebacking core, if they can stay healthy. The big question for the Panthers on the defensive side of the football is going to be, can they shore up the back half of that defense? Because even though they got pressure on the quarterback a season ago, that back half of the defense let them down too many times last year. You think about the Falcons game with that deep ball to Roddy White. The defense was in the right position. They did not make the play. Falcons go on and win that game. You think about that Tampa Bay game. You're up by double figures late in the football game. You not only allow the Buccaneers to score, but you allow them to get the football back, drive down, score again, get the 2-point conversion, send it to overtime, and score another touchdown. Defense did not do their part there, and a lot of that was the secondary. So if you are the Panthers, you got to find an answer at the safety position and at cornerback as well. So now we go to the offensive side of the football, and this is where a lot of the changes will be made for the Carolina Panthers in the 2013 season. New offensive coordinator Mike Shula is going to come in. He was just bumped up from quarterbacks coach. He's very familiar with what works in Carolina, and I think one of his quotes to me shows me that he gets it. In Carolina, it's very simple. Keep it simple, stupid type of logic here from Mike Shula. We'll keep the stuff that works, get rid of the stuff that didn't. I think that sums it up for the Panthers, because a lot of things work when you have a 6'5", 240-pound quarterback that can run, that can fling it like Cam Newton. You can do a lot of things, but in that same breath, you don't want to overexpose the offense to a certain type of scheme. And I think they really overexposed the read option last year. They really used that and squeezed that rag until it was dry. Well, Mike Shula is going to come in and they're going to get back to the fundamentals, running the football with a little bit of Stewart here, some Williams, some Tolbert. You're going to run the football. Cam is going to be allowed to display that big arm of his, go play action fake, find some guys, maybe Ted Ginn streaking up the sideline, some Steve Smith. Greg Olsen has been a huge target for you since coming over in that trade with the Bears. So he's going to be allowed to do the things that I think made him one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in his rookie season. They're going to get back to that. And I think that if the Panthers can run the football effectively, it will open up avenues for this offense to not only control the clock, because I think this defense is on the up and up, but it also will keep defenses off balance and on their heels. I thought last year this offense was way too predictable. First down, run. Second down, run. Third down, you're in third and long. Now Cam has to improvise and make something happen. It's too late now. Now you got to get off the field and punt the football. I think there will be a little bit more diversity with Mike Shula as your offensive coordinator in 2013. I look for Cam Newton to really take it to that next level in 2013. I look for him to become more of a leader in 2013 as well. And so I expect big things from the Panthers as Mike Shula kind of dumbs it down on offense. I thought this offense was outthinking themselves last year. They were trying to outsmart their opponents, so much so that they actually outsmarted themselves. And I think he's just going to scale it back, go back to the basics, and help this offense along. And I think in the case of the Panthers, less is more. Less of the read option, more of Cam Newton in this offense playing basic ball. And when you do that, you get back to the basics and just out-execute the other football team, you'll find that you'll win games in this league more times than not. And I expect the Panthers to do exactly that with Rod Chizinski now in Cleveland and Mike Shula in as your new offensive coordinator. So that's what's new in Carolina. And I don't think I said this at the beginning of the video, but it's been a while. But just to remind you, if you want your team to be next, be the first to leave the comment at the bottom of this video stating next and the team that you want to see next. That's going to do it for this edition of What's New In. We'll see who'll be next. Have a good one.